This is an idea that's been floating around in my head for a while. And by a while, I mean like 6 years. Of course, the idea was far different back then from what it is right now, but over the course of 6 years, I've been thinking about an idea for a FNAF fan game. At one point, this imaginary fan game wasn't just a game, but a quintilogy telling a very deep, complex, elaborate story with a ludicrously long timeline. I'm not joking. The original lore for this fan game literally spans from 1983 to 3166. That's 1183 years. Am I gonna tell that story in this video? No? God no. Obviously not. In my head, I thought the story was pretty cool back then, but now that I've gotten more time to think about it, I realized, hey, maybe I should take a step way back. You know, simplify things down. Not only was the story ridiculously long, but it was also pretty far-fetched, tried way too hard to fit in with the canon FNAF story as we know it, and contained many elements that just didn't really make sense. Now, granted, FNAF is literally a story about a bunch of robot animals getting possessed and coming to life, so sure, there's definitely quite a bit of wiggle room for things that are outlandish and impossible, but even then, I think my story was just too much. Because of that, I just retconned the story in my head, and in turn, the games. Well, all but one of them. You see, 4 of the 5 games I had imagined could only take place with the context of the story, and also, I hadn't really put a lot of thought into those games. However, the game which stood out to me among the 5 was the second game, which would have taken place first chronologically. It was also the only of the 5 games which could take place without the story, and it was the one which I put the most amount of thought into. I suppose this game might just have been the easiest one to think about and understand, as it was the only game in the quintilogy which took place in a past year, being 2007. After that, there was a massive timeline gap between this game and the next one. Everything that happened in between felt like it didn't really have a whole lot of actual meaning or significance, and had no other excuse to take place other than just to keep the story going for such a long time into the future. But I digress. Origins and the story aside, I'm now going to talk about my concept more in depth, focusing on the actual functionality of the game and how it would work. Also, as the disclaimer at the start of the video said, the concept for this game is purely hypothetical. This game probably won't ever become a real thing. Or, I don't know, maybe one day it might. Though definitely not likely or anytime soon. This game doesn't really have that much of a story, or even a title. Not that it matters anyway. Now, on to the mechanics. The game takes place in a location called Foxy's Pizza Cove. This is what the map layout looks like, having 14 cameras and 5 different entrances into your office, 2 hallway entrances and 3 vent entrances. Objective-wise, it's the same old song that has been preached literally tens of thousands of times. The animatronic mascots will hunt you down, and your goal is to survive until 6 AM. There are 3 important tools you need to use: the cameras, a maintenance interface, and your ears. Let's look at each of the mechanics individually now. Foxy starts in Cam 8 and takes a direct path to the front entrance of your office in this order: Cam 8, Cam 2, Cam 4, Cam 9, and then Cam 5. He never strays from this path, but he does occasionally backtrack or stay in place and make a false sound cue to fake you out. This makes his arrival much harder to predict on later nights, as keeping track of his position becomes almost impossible when dealing with other aggressive enemies. When he arrives, shut the door on him and be quick about it. With each passing night, you'll get progressively less and less time to react. Tangle starts in Cam 8 and can approach from both the front and right entrance of your office. She does not have a set path to your office and can go almost anywhere in the building except the boiler room and vents. This makes her completely unpredictable if you're not keeping track of her. If she attacks from the front, close the door on her. If she attacks from the right, hide under your desk. Despite her unpredictability, her reaction timer is quite forgiving. Make sure you're checking the right entrance every now and then to see if she's there. Mangle starts in Cam 8 and takes the same direct path as Foxy. However, instead of going from cam 5 to your office, Mangle enters the boiler room on cam 11 and will crawl into one of the 3 vents to get to you. Defense against her heavily relies on listening. If you hear Mangle thumping around an event, check to see which vent she's coming from and act accordingly. If she comes from the left, hide your face with the camera monitor. If she comes from the right, hide under your desk. If she comes from behind you, turn to face the vent and stare her down. Make sure you're ready for her, as she doesn't stay in the vents for long, and her reaction timer is one of the shortest. Also note that Mangle will only have to travel her path once every night. Once she reaches the boiler room, it becomes her new starting position after each attack. For balance purposes, she has a cooldown like Foxy in FNAF 1. Petey does not have a path to your office. Instead, he can randomly appear on cams 1 through 10. He occasionally causes system failures. Stay on top of your maintenance, as he will attack you if an error goes too long without being fixed. Treasure is located on cam 3, and you must wind her music box to keep her at bay. Flying Duchess starts in cam 1, and every once in a while, you'll hear a sound cue from her indicating that she's moved to a random spot in the building. She can appear in cams 1 through 11. When this happens, you must find her on the cameras and look at her to reset her. If you don't find her in time, she will appear at your office's front entrance. Shutting the door on her is a second defense, but be advised that doing so will result in her disabling your door for 12 seconds after she leaves. On night 6, there's a massive change of pace. All the other animatronics are gone and there's only 2 enemies. Treasure will start on a random camera between cam 4, cam 7, cam 9, and cam 10. Your only objective? Stare at her when she arrives at your office. She will mimic the paths of the other animatronics, meaning she's able to attack from all 5 entrances. She moves fast, so keep track of her at all times to know where she'll be coming from. If she reaches your office and you're not already looking at the place she'll be, you're dead. If she's coming from the front door, face the front and be looking all the way to the right. If she's coming from the left vent, face the front and be looking all the way to the left. If she's coming from the right entrance, face that direction. If she's coming from behind, turn around. Be wary that JX1SHDWFXF will sometimes force you to stay off the cameras for a few seconds, and even that can be enough to lose track of Treasure's position. JX1SHDWFXF, or JX1 as I like to call him for short, will from time to time appear either on your cameras or in your office. To avoid it, look away by pulling your camera up or down. Be mindful that you must be patient. When it appears, it will remain for a few moments before disappearing, making a sound cue to signify its leave. If you look again too soon, it'll jump scare you. The door used to fend off Foxy, Tangle, and Flying Duchess can only be closed for a max of 15 seconds at a time. Leaving it shut for too long will result in the door being forced open and having a 12-second cooldown. There are 3 types of system errors: door errors, camera errors, and music box errors. They're all pretty self-explanatory. PD will cause errors to occur at random. Some important things to note: door errors cannot occur when your door is closed. Camera errors cannot occur while the cameras are in use, but PD can still disable them if you look at him for too long. Music box errors can occur at any time except for if the music box's meter is below 35%. Errors will not occur on night 6. PD cannot cause multiple errors at once. Rebooting a system when it's not broken will give it a temporary block from PD. You can only have one system blocked at a time. So those are all the specific mechanics of each character and element. Of course, there would need to be some adjustments programming-wise so that the game balance poses a fair challenge without the RNG being overbearing. Well, 20 mode might be a different story, but we don't need to talk about 20 mode, guys, just ignore that. There are a few problems that the raw mechanics of the characters potentially pose should they conflict. For example, one issue I thought of right away was Flying Duchess and PD. On the cameras, you have to look at Flying Duchess, but you have to avoid looking at PD. So if Flying Duchess and PD ended up on the same camera, it would form an impossible situation where Flying Duchess would make it to your door unfairly. The solution is pretty easy and straightforward. Duchess and PD can't be on the same camera. Another issue I considered was the animatronic reaction time. I mentioned earlier that you have a small amount of time to react to animatronics arriving at your office. But imagine this. You're playing the game, and you see Tangle at your right door, so you hide under the desk. However, the second she leaves, you die to Foxy. Yeah, dying to an enemy you had no chance of fending off in time is extremely annoying. So I thought of two solutions for this. First, the animatronics would have two separate timers. One timer determines the amount of time before an animatronic kills you, and the other timer determines how long you have to react. In these instances, you can only be attacked when either of these timers runs out. However, the reaction timer can't start until or unless the player sees the animatronic. For example, if Foxy arrives while you're looking at the cameras, facing the east doorway, the vent behind you, or you're under the desk, he won't be able to kill you in less than a second. However, the other, longer timer counts down no matter what. So if the player idles for too long not dealing with that enemy, they'll be jump scared anyway. Now, what about Mangle and Petey? They kinda throw a wrench into the whole gameplay loop. What if you get a door error and then someone shows up a split second later? Well, that's what the system blocking mechanic is for. What if you get overwhelmed by multiple things and then Mangle shows up? That's why she has a sound cue and attack cooldown. Look, technicalities aside, I know it's not completely RNG proof. There's definitely some potential situations here you just can't get out of, but that's basically most FNAF games. When you construct a challenge like this, in which there's all of these different mechanics and game elements, it's hard to make something out of it that's 100% skill-based. But that's also what makes progressing so much more satisfying. I highly doubt I could make this no RNG, but it's definitely possible to make this less RNG. So, if you guys got any ideas, put them in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys think. Anyways, that is my fan game concept. Again, thank you guys so much for 500 subscribers. I know I'm kinda late. Yeah, just kinda. That is absolutely mind-blowing to me. This channel has come a long way and still has a long ways to go. Also, we're coming up on the final stretch of Fun Times and Nightmares Season 1. Y'all have been doing absolutely amazing with the questions, so really, keep them coming. I can't wait to finish out Season 1 because there's a lot in store for Season 2. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more content. There's a lot to look forward to. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.